My husband refused to answer my calls while I was in labor and my brother played a horrible prank. Now my husband is furious I won't cut him off. Original post. My husband and I got in a fight prior to my daughter's birth a week ago when he casually suggested a paternity test for our daughter when she was born. To be clear, this was completely out of the blue with no wanting or reason. I'm a homebody who works remotely with no male friends other than my brother. I told him that he was accusing me of infidelity and he said he just wanted to be sure, and kept bringing it up until I told him, after 3 days of him asking and the stress starting to make me physically ill, that I didn't want to talk to him and left to my brother's house. I called him while I was gone and tried to work it out, but he refused. After all this, I went home the next day to grab some things while he was at work, and I went into labor. I called him 16 times, before calling my brother, who called him another half a dozen times himself while on the way to pick me up, and then on the way to the hospital. It was a horrible and traumatic birth. I started crowding in the car and the doctor delivered my daughter in the back of my brother's van because I was too far along to move me, before rushing me in when I kept bleeding. It was horrible. I hated it all. My brother's wife, who is a nurse, even told me she honestly thought I wouldn't make it. I also opted for a hysterectomy as it came to that or something more dangerous. I only ever wanted one or none, but my husband wants a large family. I'm trying to bond with my daughter, but it's been hard. The point is that during this, while I was returning from surgery 10 hours after I called, my husband finally responded and asked why I hadn't answered his call. However, my brother had my phone and was so angry that he said, "This is OP's brother, I'm at the hospital. She didn't make it," and turned it off. My husband rushed over and got there when I had just woken up, and started shouting until the security forced him out, and then didn't get to see our daughter until the next day because I was mostly asleep, and apparently they needed my signature to allow him back. My sister-in-law thinks it was horribly cruel, but that he deserved it. But my brother stands by his prank, and says that he only gave my husband 10 minutes of the same fear he had felt at my side for 10+ hours. Whenever he sees my husband, he also keeps telling him that I nearly died because we waited for him. My brother used to be mostly indifferent to my husband, but now he absolutely hates him. You can see it in his face whenever my husband enters the room. And he's been visiting a lot because he doesn't trust my husband to care for me while I'm still healing. My husband is furious that he won't apologize, and that I won't make him, and yelled at me when I said that the only reason my brother had my phone was because he wasn't there. I am trying to be empathetic. I know he feels guilty. I've spoken to my therapist, and she says the apathy I'm feeling is likely general and not solely focus on him, from lingering shock from the trauma, but didn't say much about the prank. My mother-in-law has been texting me to say that my family is horribly cruel for the prank, and that I should go no contact with my brother, and now my husband is saying the same. I just don't know what to do. I'm not in a good headspace. It's been hard to be in the same room with my husband, and I've been sleeping in the guest room with my daughter. He brought up the paternity once, and I just exhaustively told him to either get out of my face or go stay with his mom if he's planning on stressing me out even more. I really don't feel myself. And yes, I am taking the likelihood of PPD seriously, and my therapist who has suggested that it may be PTSD too. However, I just want more opinions because I just don't know. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Your husband is scary. All of this started because he suddenly doubted the paternity of his child and refused to back down. That's an interesting behavior, given that he has no reason to doubt you. Either he's projecting his own cheating onto you, or the realities of being a parent momentarily freaked him out. My money is on the former. Why? Because he didn't answer your calls, and he didn't care when the chips were down. You almost died. That's serious. Was your brother out of line? Yeah, a little. Under different circumstances, what he did would have been inexcusable, but obviously your husband needed some kind of wake-up call, and you almost did die because of his behavior. If you want to save this marriage, he has a lot of work to do. But to be honest, between his accusations, his subsequent temper tantrums, and now his attempts to isolate you from your family, he does not sound worthy of your love. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was going to say that my money is on the husband projecting his own infidelity. Even if that's not the case though, he's shown his true nature. When people show themselves to you, believe them. Not only was he not there for you when you nearly died, he has doubled down on his behavior. He is still insisting on a paternity test, still bucking the blame, and continuing to re-traumatize you with his behavior. Do not let this man isolate you from your family. As far as your brother goes, I would have done the same. Normally a prank like that couldn't be justified, but he was likely traumatized himself having just been through that nightmare with you, and rightfully furious with your husband. Thank God for your brother looking out for you honestly. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Pregnant and postpartum women are unbelievably subject to elevated levels of mistreatment and DV. Escape this situation while you can, for yourself and for your baby. Her husband didn't get a wake-up call or realize that his wife probably would have died delivering his child, had her brother not stepped up like he spectacularly failed to do. Instead, he is painting himself as the victim. I'm sorry, after everything that happened, your husband still brought up the paternity test after you gave birth. Christ on a bike, hun, you have so much reason to divorce this guy. What your brother did was pretty horrible, but honestly under the circumstances, I kind of don't blame him. Your husband is self-centered on the extreme and his selfishness put your life in danger. Your brother acted badly towards your husband, but was there for you in your time of need and has continued to show up for you since then. Your turd-bag husband was nowhere to be found, and instead of giving you an abject, groveling apology for how he let you down, he's doubled down on this paternity test BS, and is demanding you cut off a loving, supportive family member when you've just survived a traumatic birth. Who the heck does he think he is? Honestly, I wouldn't listen to anything your mother-in-law says. She raised this idiot. She probably wants you to make up so she doesn't have to take him back at home. But after everything that happened, I don't know if it's worth even trying to forgive him, and he's certainly not acting like someone who thinks his actions need forgiveness. Oh, and you don't need to extend empathy to him because he feels guilty. He should feel guilty. And instead of apologizing for his actions, he's lashing out at his traumatized postpartum wife. What an absolute trash. Congratulations on your daughter. I hope you will treat yourself with the respect you would want her to have in this situation. This is the best response. OP, please take your kid and go to your brother's house. Please. This whole situation is a mess. Don't cut your family out of your life. And now for the update. I can't update the old post, but since so many people reached out, I thought I'd make a new one. So, I don't think this will be something we can come back from. I just don't think I'll be able to heal with him, because there is no way he didn't know it was me calling, and he still hasn't told me why he didn't answer. I know I thought I wouldn't decide right away, but I actually don't want to forget how terrible it was waiting on him, thinking he couldn't possibly leave me like that no matter how angry he was. I took the time to think of that moment before it all went down, and just how grossly betrayed and scared and alone I felt while the contractions were hitting, and I was on my knees trying to breathe through the pain while waiting on the phone while it rang through. And I just don't think there's any coming back from that. I wouldn't want my daughter to think it's okay to stay with a man who destroyed her trust that way either. I will be contacting an attorney, and will be meeting with them in the coming weeks. We had a prenup, so it hopefully won't be too hellish, I hope. I feel like this situation became even clearer when my friend asked me if I'd still trust him as the one to sign off on my medical papers, and the reaction to that idea was visceral. I wouldn't, and I want him to get off that legality as soon as possible. In fact, there are roommates I had in college I would trust more. I would have never ignored so many calls from him consecutively, unless I had told him expressly that I was unavailable at a specific time, and even then. I feel good with my brother and sister-in-law here with me, especially so with her being a nurse and having been there through childbirth. It's really helped us bond in a way that we'd never really had time to. I've also finally told my old friends about the baby, and they are alternating to come and help me out for the next little while. None of this even touched the paternity test, but I'll get it for the proceedings, I guess, so I guess he'll get what he wanted. Anyway, I'm safe and well, and my daughter is healthy and happy as a peach, and pretty much an angel who is happy to sleep peacefully anywhere and took to breastfeeding with ease, which is such a blessing since everything still hurts. Just making this decision has taken an odd weight off my shoulders, and my sister-in-law has been really helping us bond. Anyway, thank you for letting me write this out. I'm not good with diaries or journals, but writing to people feels different, and it's actually brilliant for the clarity of the situation. Even my therapist said that I seemed clearer and calmer. I might try a diary again as she suggested. I'm sorry, but also not. This is the best outcome. You and your daughter deserve better. I feel about the same, like I really wish this hadn't happened, but I know in my gut there's no moving on from it, if that makes sense. Have you thought about if he was cheating and that's why he didn't answer? I actually know someone this almost same situation happened to. He asked for paternity test because he was cheating, and paranoid that she was too. He was with the mistress when she went into labor too, and ignored calls. Also, have you been home with him or staying elsewhere? I looked at the original post and this one. Did your husband ever say why he didn't answer? No, it's one of the things that added to this decision. He's been completely mum on it, and is just saying he didn't see them. For what it's worth, I'm not even judging your brother. Your soon-to-be ex-husband deserved it. I already feel so ridiculous even contemplating cutting him off. I didn't tell him, but I still feel as though I should apologize. What your husband was doing was abusive, and he tried to take advantage of you even further by trying to manipulate you into cutting off your brother during a time when you were already mentally and physically traumatized and not in a place to make rational decisions. Please divorce him as soon as possible and move on with your life. He was trying to permanently cut OP off from her support. The two people who dropped everything to be there for her in her hours of need, just like he should have been. What he did was unforgivable, and if I was the brother, I would act and say the same. He deserved the 10 minutes of pain and panic. The fear he still hasn't told OP where he was for 10 plus hours, and the paternity question out of the blue makes me think he's projecting and has cheated himself. Hence, he can't admit where he was. What is or who is more important than his wife and child? Now for the last story. My husband is berating me for not defending him on our wedding day. I am now considering divorcing my husband over this catastrophe because he and his groomsmen decided to prank me. For background, we have been dating since I joined my nursing career 3 years ago. He was related to a patient and my husband wanted to get drinks with me. We hit it off. But now I'm here, crying in my dressing gown. My brother is a baker. He's quite popular around town for how good his cakes are. And as his little sister, he decided to bake me and my husband a wedding cake for free. Even though his wife just gave birth to triplets, he still chose to bake us a beautiful wedding cake. So we will call this brother Ben. And then my other brother is an event planner, and since he is also pretty wealthy, he decided to cut slack and charge me far less. Since he quotes, "I know you the most, don't worry." My brother took the reins on my wedding day and made sure it went well, and made it like I was a queen. I'll call my oldest brother Peter. First red flag of the day, while standing at the altar, he looks like he's high as he's slouching on the priest. I could almost hear my mum rolling in the grave. Second was when he kept complaining to Peter about how the flowers looked hideous and that he's disgraceful. I remind my husband that he should be thankful that Peter listened to our wishes and that he tried to make our wedding as nice as possible. My husband just rolled his eyes and went off to get drunk. I'm sitting there annoyed, but I'm like, he's probably scared, so I'll give him time. He doesn't though. He does at the cake though. That has me thinking he's easing up. So, when the groomsmen got behind us, I thought we were getting our pictures taken. So that also made me think my bridesmaids are behind me. Nope. The minute my dear old dad tries to take his phone out for a photo, I'm grabbed by the shoulders by the guys and am slammed onto the cake. My head goes through the cake like butter. My dress and face are now covered, and I now want to hide and cry. Hellfire kicks loose. Peter, Dad, my bodybuilder bridesmaid, my Uncle Henry and Gary, and my Nan start kicking out the groomsmen, while I'm crying and holding on to Ben as my husband is yelling at me. Most of my husband's side start laughing at the whole thing, and never have I been more traumatized in my life. After I got myself cleaned up in the toilet, I went into my wedding to see my husband wrecking the decor, and mine and his family are now screaming at one another. I hated that day, but I'm glad my family and friends stuck up for me. I don't feel guilty about what happened on our special day, but my husband is trying to ban me from seeing my brothers and dad, and that if I try and see them, I'm an awful woman. Because apparently I was terrible at our wedding because I made the day all about me, even though Peter asked him for his input into the wedding and my husband just shrugged. I'm in desperate need of advice if I should even try and reconcile a relationship with him. I'm 75% leaving him. I just have a lot of doubt and am embarrassed that my marriage is ending before it began. But if anyone could please put their input in the comments if I should stay with him or sack him off. Thank you for giving me your time. Now for the advice. How did your relationship get as far as getting married? That sounds absolutely awful, and I feel terrible for you. He's humiliated you in front of your closest family and friends on what's supposed to be the best day of your lives. Do not let him cut you off from the people who supported you through that. Examples of emotional mistreatment from this post alone. Criticizing, and then destroying, everything she planned for the wedding. Publicly humiliating her. Violating her boundaries. Dismissing her feelings. Twisting reality to make it seem like she was the one that ruined the wedding instead of him. Isolating her from her friends and family. And I'm positive this is far from the first time he's been controlling / manipulative / abusive. His groomsmen physically attacked you, and he's mad at you. You should absolutely leave for your safety right away. I'm glad you have supportive friends and family. And here I thought my wedding was a crap show. OP, I got married at 29, and my marriage lasted 9 months. Go get this annulled. Our lives are too short to be stuck with someone like my ex-wife or like your newly minted husband. He literally ruined your wedding day, not you. Do not be ashamed, and your family sounds like a good lot. Thank you. I'm glad you were in a similar situation as me so you can give me advice, but I'm also not glad since I know that feeling. I'm sorry about your past marriage. My ex-wife was super disrespectful to my parents and my family the whole time I was with her. I had the blinders on the whole time. At my wedding, her dad recalled how he didn't give me his blessing, and this and that, about why I'm not good enough for her, which obviously pales in comparison in your wedding, which I'm terribly sorry that you had to go through. I put a lot of thought in ending it before it even started. Litany of issues also factored, but I wish I would have pulled the plug that day. But I didn't, and 9 months later I was barely a person. Then my ex-wife cheated on me and I saw the light. A lot like what you witnessed at your wedding showed you the light on the person you're with. And now he wants to control when you can see your family. Nope. He showed you his true colors. We're not here long enough to live in constant chaos and the horrible things people do. You're right, I deserve better and I'm not gonna let him get the best of me.